Today I have a topic where I couldn't find much in UK media, which surprised me a bit, because an extended deadline by which UK citizens who live in Denmark must apply to retain their resident status is fast approaching now. In March, the Danish government announced that British nationals who had missed a previous deadline to secure their post-Brexit residency status under the Brexit withdrawal agreement now have until the end of 2023 to apply or resubmit their late application. That decision came after a large number of British nationals living in Denmark missed the 2021 deadline, in part because they did not receive individual notification as they expected of the need to apply. Britons in Denmark who have already applied for and received a new residency document since January 1st, 2021 do of course not need to apply again. The deadline for UK nationals living in Denmark to apply for their permanent residence permits under the Brexit withdrawal agreement is, as I said, fast approaching now. The current deadline, and they have to remember, is December 31st, and there's no indication that it will be extended any further. And this means that UK nationals who have not yet applied for their permits need to do so as soon as possible. And there are several reasons why there is no time to waste for UK nationals in Denmark here. First, the application process can take several months to complete, and there is a risk of delays if applications are submitted close to the deadline. Second, if UK nationals do not apply for their permits by the deadline, they may lose their right to live, work and study in Denmark. And third, the Danish government has been known to be strict in its enforcement of immigration laws, and there is a risk that UK nationals who do not have the correct permits could be fined or even deported. For all of these reasons, it is important for UK nationals in Denmark to apply for their permanent residence permits as soon as possible. Failure to do so could have serious consequences. And there are some key things that UK nationals in Denmark need to apply for their permanent residence permits. And I want to repeat that for you. They need to gather the required documentation, which may include passport photos, proof of address, and proof of income. And they need to complete the online application form. And they have to submit the application form and the supporting documentation to the Danish Immigration Service. As I said, the original deadline was extended partly because many people missed it and some didn't know or weren't informed that they needed to apply, which is quite a surprise. Everybody knows about Brexit. And there are several reasons why some British immigrants in Denmark might not have applied for their permanent residence permits during the first deadline period. And the one is the least, I would say. That's the lack of awareness. They say that not all British immigrants in Denmark may have been aware of the requirement to apply for a permanent residence permit. The Danish government indeed made a significant effort to inform British immigrants about the application process. And it's weird that some people still miss the information or did not fully understand it. And then what I think is more likely is procrastination. I'm a king of that. Some people may have put off applying for their permits until the last minute, either because they were busy with other things or because they were hoping that the deadline would be extended. Yeah, some exceptionalism here. And the fear of rejection is another point, because some people may have been afraid that their applications would be rejected if they did not have all of the required documentation or if they did not meet all of the eligibility criteria. And some had financial difficulties. The application fee for a permanent residence permit is 3,780 Danish crowns, that's 505 euros, which may have been unaffordable for some British immigrants. And some believed that they did not need a permit. Some British immigrants indeed have believed that they did not need to apply for a permanent residence service because they had been living in Denmark for many years or because they were married to a Danish citizen. But the Brexit withdrawal agreement indeed only applied to UK nationals who were living in Denmark on December 31st in 2020, and it did not provide any exceptions based on length of residency or marital status. As a result of these factors, some British immigrants in Denmark did not apply for their permanent residence permits during the first deadline period, which was a grave mistake. However, the Danish government has extended the deadline to December 31st, so there is still time for British immigrants to apply, and I don't hope that they will extend that again. British immigrants who have not yet applied for their permits really need to do so as soon as possible to avoid any potential problems. British citizens residing in Denmark need to apply for permanent residence permits since the UK left the European Union on January 31st in 2020 with Brexit. And as a consequence of Brexit, British nationals are now considered third country nationals in Denmark, and they are no longer entitled to the same rights as EU citizens. The Brexit withdrawal agreement, which was reached between the UK and the EU, provides a framework for the rights of British citizens living in EU member states, including Denmark, at a certain point. And according to the agreement, British citizens who were legally resident in Denmark before the end of the transition period on December 31st in 2020 are entitled to apply for permanent residence status. And this status allows them to continue living, working, and studying in Denmark indefinitely. The deadline for British citizens in Denmark to apply for permanent residence, as I said, was initially set for June 30th in 2022. However, the Danish government has since extended the deadline to December 31st of this year. And this means that they still can apply. And I'm repeating that all of the time to make people finally understand that. And there are several reasons why British citizens in Denmark need to apply for a permanent residence permit. First, without a permit, they may lose their right to live, work, and study in Denmark. And that's another thing I cannot repeat often enough. And second, they may have difficulty accessing essential services such as healthcare and social security. And third, they indeed may be at risk of deportation. The application process for a permanent residence permit is relatively straightforward. British citizens can apply online or in person at the Danish Immigration Service. As I said, the fee is with 505 euros, or in Danish crowns then quite expensive, but the required documentation includes a passport, a proof of address, and proof of income, and it typically takes several months to complete. British immigrants in Denmark who do not apply for permanent residence permits by the deadline may face a number of consequences, and I will repeat it again. The loss of the right to live, work, and study in Denmark is one of them, because without a permanent residence permit, British immigrants will no longer be legally authorized to reside in Denmark. They will therefore need to leave the country or face deportation. And the difficulty accessing essential services is another. British immigrants without permanent residence permits may have difficulty accessing essential services such as healthcare, but also education and not only social security. And they may also be required to pay higher fees for these services. And it is important there is an increased risk of deportation. British immigrants without permanent residence permits may be at an increased risk of deportation if they commit any crimes or violate the terms of their stay in Denmark. And there are potential legal consequences. British immigrants who fail to apply for permanent residence permits may be subject to legal penalties. And this can go from fines even to imprisonment. And in addition to these specific consequences, British immigrants who do not apply for permanent residence permits may also experience a number of practical challenges, such as difficulty finding employment because it would be illegal, opening a bank account, or even renting an apartment. The Danish government has stated that it is committed to ensuring that British immigrants who are legally resident in Denmark are able to continue living and working in the country. But for this, it is important for British immigrants to understand the implications of not applying for permanent residence permits and to take the necessary steps to secure their status in Denmark. They will not carry everything to your home. And there's something you need to do if you are a British resident in Denmark, or a British citizen wanting to be resident in Denmark if you haven't done so yet. So this needs some proactive approach. I still don't understand why people haven't applied until now. I mean, Brexit is a topic that you can't escape, and there cannot be anyone who didn't get that Brexit happened, or to a certain extent has happened. It hasn't fully happened yet. But there are sometimes things I absolutely can't understand. But if you want to understand a different topic, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.